Johannes, welcome to noise11.com. I'm very excited that after all these years, it's been nearly 2 decades, we're finally going to get Avatar to Australia.
Yeah, and like we said, it's about damn time. But also, I mean, you're lucky. We're really good now. So, so if there's ever was a time to see us, it's now. And and yeah, sometimes it takes longer to get to certain places. It's all about getting that foot in the door the first time. So now that we have that foot in the door, we got a lot of proof. So if just people show up, we're gonna be in excellent shape for coming back over and over again. In a way, like it's our audition for all of Australia.
Well, Australia has gone out of its way to get itself into Eurovision. You know, Australia is a Eurovision entrant every single year for some strange reason. I've never worked out why. I think it's because we sound like Australia, and they haven't worked out we're not the same thing yet.
Or you just have, I don't mean, I think maybe Eurovision is just also, it's a state of mind more than a place.
Yeah,
which is why as much of a good time I have in the US without touring there and all the friends and whatever, it's still a people who will never ever be able to comprehend what Eurovision is for real, and as such, I don't see them ever being able to join. But I feel like Australia, yeah, that I think you understand the strangeness and the kitsch and all that goes about it, and wasn't, as far as I've been taught, as far as Abba goes, Australia is one of those key places in their careers.
That is
historically.
True. That is true.
All those stories, I remember seeing Alice Cooper talk about that he stepped out in the hotel room. Here's this something being shouted, outside. He thinks here, Alice, the square full of fans, goes out, no reaction. And he's like, I'm here on the balcony, and then people start cheering, and he looks up. Abba got the nicer room about him, and they're greeting the crowd.
It's funny because it's true.
Yeah, so I feel like that is there's an opening for a Swedish band to become Australia's sweethearts, I guess. As Abba won't be touring there anytime soon, I guess. So I'm ready to take the throne.
Not unless they tour here as their avatars, and I guess one day
but we're the
we'll
real
have Avatar as an avatar.
You got Avatar in person instead of Abba's avatars. Yeah. So I think we are the superior choice to go and see.
It makes sense. Now, I do believe you are prone to Google before you come to a country. Have you started to research what to look out for in Australia just yet?
When is the first time? I kind of, it takes so little to get excited when you go to a place completely new for you for the first time that I haven't worried too much. Frankly, if I don't see a kangaroo, I'm gonna be pissed. But other than that, there's so little that it takes so little for something to feel exotic. I look forward to going to the gas station for the first time over there and just look, what chocolate bars do they have here? Oh, I don't know, and complain about your coffee being not as good as ours, and because that's what a Swede does traveling around, and then compare notes to. I grew up, it hits me today that, oh yeah, that's right, one of my absolute favorite, or two of my absolute favorite movies of all time when I was a kid that I watched over and over was Crocodile, Dundee 1 and 2. And I'm now everything that isn't exactly like this Hollywood version of Australia from the 80s, everything that is slightly off from that is gonna piss me off.
Well, you'll have a good time when you get here. We promise we'll send the Volvo or the SAAB to pick you up.
If you don't use, that scene where he has this thing on a string that he swings around to communicate with. If you use smartphones instead of that thing, it's going to be a letdown.
The band has been going since 2002. I mean, you've been there for every single album of this band. So I guess you've never had a real job.
Oh, yes, we have had, real jobs. I have had real jobs, but not real employment. It's all about making some kind of modest living, especially in the beginning. Where you've always worked full time with Avatar. It was always a full time job. but then sometimes you had to work full time aside of that, and to make up for the early days of, you know, you don't get paid to play until you get paid. So maybe you worked a bit extra. So you had those 120-hour weeks. No joke. But yeah, just having the kind of job where you would be a substitute or extra somehow, and being called in on short notice, you could also say, sorry, I'm busy for a month. And they couldn't fire you because you weren't really employed in the first place. We've done a lot of that.
Well, I guess Trivium, when you got the opportunity to fill in for Matt when he went off to have a child at one point, there's a bit of a fill-in job for you.
Oh, yeah. But they didn't call me back, though.
Oh, really?
Well, Matt came back. But that was fun, though. It was a bit like, I had a little iPad on stage to remember the lyrics, because it's hard with your own song, because you're there writing them, recording them, then rehearsing them, and rehearsing a bit before. I don't have to practice the lyrics so much because I'm forced to anyway. So my skills of memorizing others' lyrics turned out to be lacking, but it felt a bit like karaoke night. But it was also cool, for once, when someone isn't at a show who was supposed to be, it's usually bad news. But because this was a nice thing, Matt was becoming a father, that's good news. So the vibes also with the crowd and stuff, they were very lenient, forgiving to the fact that Trivium did it in quite a different way and made it special. So it was a cool vibe. If there was ever a time, instead of that, oh, sorry guys, Ozzy Osbourne can't come tonight, but here's Rob Halford, those historical moments where it was rough, even for such a, the greatest frontman ever covering for the greatest frontman ever. Still, the crowd wasn't easy to please, because it's, it wasn't a happy time that led to that switch. But in our case, that was really cool.
You're 9 albums in now, which is, quite a catalogue of albums to have produced over the last couple of decades. And the new album, Dance Devil Dance, you've been out, you've performed a few of the songs from this live. In fact, one of the set lists I saw most recently from you, your opening show with the title track. Is that the standard opening song at the moment?
Yeah, it's you can expect something very, very similar to take place in Australia. Absolutely. Is, putting together a set list, if I want to, be a bit highbrow about it, or even pretentious, but it's a composition in itself, to piece things together, to just the ebbs and flows of a show, to really have not just, oh, this is a good song, let's play that one too, but when it comes, before what and after what, really dictates if it's going to come into full bloom, the song, for the audience. And to figure that out, and then adding the theatrical elements to it and stuff, if you make it right, then you make, like we do, we're on stage for 2 hours, and it's just flies by. And we nailed it this time with what we've been doing on the road. So we got this itch to maybe switch a few things around, but at the same time, everything we do in Australia now will be a first. So it will most likely be very similar.
I guess getting into record a 9th album, you might like to shake things around, do something a bit different, and bring Lzzy Hale in on this record must have been a bit of fun. Was she actually in the studio with you?
No, she was at home in the US, and we recorded in the woods in Sweden. But yeah, that was a great thing. We have had people help out on albums before. We had a pianist on the last one. We have had guest solo players, little things here and there. The electronic stuff, a lot of it has been done by other people, orchestrations, based on things we have done, but then that someone who's really good at twisting those particular knobs has been helping out. This was the first time we did anything like a proper duet. And it was cool. It started with a song, because, as far as what people on labels and thought things would say, although now we are our own label, is like that a duet, a feature is a good idea, you know, but we were never able to think like that. Okay, let's do one of those. No, but Tim has written some amazing riffs, and when I started to work on vocals, the very first idea I came up with is to sing is the thing that it starts out with, this call and response between two voices. And initially I'm thinking, okay, so Henrik, our bass player, will have a lot to do. Okay. But it quickly moves on to, you know, I start Simon and Garfunkeling the rest of the song, you know, harmonizing all the way. And well, this is suddenly a lot of singing for two people. Oh, maybe this is the duet that we never did. And, you know, a very quick thought process of, so who would we like to have sing? And already without having a name in my mind, immediately acknowledging that Avatar is a goddamn sausage party. So there are certain sounds and certain qualities that we are not physically able to do. And if then thinking, who's singing do we like? Who do we respect? Who do we know? And so that Lzzy immediately jumped up to the top of that list. I mean, Avatar is a metal band first, but there's a lot of rock and roll in what we're doing. And I feel Halestorm is, in a similar sense, a rock band first in my mind, but they go heavy, they go hard, and especially Lzzy as a singer. So there's an overlap there. There's also the kinship between that we as a band, you know, you've been mentioning it, we've been together for so long, we really grew up together, and there's that brotherhood and friendship and just that union between, connection between us that is bigger, even bigger than the band, and it goes beyond that. And Hailstorm is exactly the same in that way, and I deeply respect and feel a kinship with that. So it's just, and we have done a few shows together. It was a good time. So there were, you know, there was no better choice, really.
I love the expression Simon and Garfunkeling the song.
Yeah, you know, but just, you know, harmonizing all the way. And I mean, if I go to the nitty gritty of it, I think mine is a bit primitive to be considered Simon Garfunkel level, but it's in the spirit of that.
I believe you're also a big fan of Beethoven.
Yeah, that was my first favorite as a kid. Just, I think, obviously from an early age, really vibing with music. In general, you know, it just comes as a surprise, I think, with a person that then grows up and gets to do it. And in my household, growing up, there was a lot of classical music, and I think Beethoven was the one of those, because a lot of those, it was a lot of the big Germans, you know, a lot of it, so, or Austrians, so you got your Mozarts, your Handels, and well, Vivaldi's Italian, but those really big standard names in that collection that was huge in my household. And Beethoven had the Fifth Symphony, the bum 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 bum. So, you know, then it makes sense somehow evolutionary. I realized then as a little kid as well. Michael Jackson was huge, and the concert film that someone had recorded off of TV, Thriller, was the coolest thing because there he turned into a monster. And also liking off of television, I like Addams Family and the theme song for that. So you're kind of drawn to darkness before you find darkness already as a 6-year-old kid, that it all kind of all stacks up and lines up. And also from home, you know, my dad being born in the 40s, meaning there's a lot of the music from the 60s, especially Beatles and Kinks. And when it came to Beatles, also being drawn to that I Am the Walrus, and that's a bit scary and strange, or Revolution, the single version of Revolution being all distorted and aggressive. So it's all being pulled in a direction that then growing up and really finding a home in metal makes sense.
Yeah. Do you realize at the moment you are 3 years older than when Beethoven wrote the Fifth Symphony?
Shut up. Yeah, no, but I mean, it's so different, those things, right? When you were considered an adult or what we do at different ages in life now compared to back then, or even just a few decades ago. I mean, Paul McCartney, he turned 37, I guess, in 1979 or something.
Yeah.
That is 9 years after Beatles. It's a lifetime after all those achievements. But it's okay. It's just a different, things move in a different pace nowadays in that sense, I think. And and I'm glad still that on my best of days, when it comes to being in this band and doing things, I do feel like a complete novice, a beginner, meaning there's always more to do, more to learn, new things to achieve and discover about yourself and your art and how you perform it. And that thing keeps going despite me being, obviously ancient at this point.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing you in Australia for the very first time. I do hope that the Fifth Symphony by Beethoven is in your set list somewhere. And I also hope the Addams Family theme actually makes an appearance in the show as well.
Hard to convince the others. They are more Queen. Well, I like Queen too. Their dads listen to, I think, Roxette and, oh my God, what is his name? Oh, he was so huge in Sweden. Gary Moore.
Oh, really? Gary Moore was big over there.
Yeah, was it the Still Got the Blues album that I think, again, not my parents, but if you go one generation younger or so, it's one of those that sold disproportionately much in Sweden. Like everyone had that one.
Wow.
You always get that one, which international artists that are extra huge somewhere. I guess we touched on Abba before for Australia, being that is a standout thing, as far as I know. And the same like Bruce Springsteen being huge everywhere, of course, but especially in the US, but then also particularly like God in Sweden. And you have Iron Maiden being particularly gods in Brazil. It's always that thing that happens.
Yes. Well, we look forward to it all happening down in Australia very, very soon. It's great to talk to you here at noise11.com.
That was all mine. Thank you.
Please hang up and try again.